5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey, space enthusiasts. This is our second conversation with a crew member of the dearMoon project. Just as a reminder, dearMoon will be a circumlunar Starship mission, so this is an Apollo 8 style mission, to which Japanese entrepreneur Yusaku Maezawa, or MZ as he's known, has invited 8 artists to join him. One of those lucky 8 is the photographer, filmmaker, and whale swimming guide, Karim Iliya. We talk about his expectations and objectives for the mission. Enjoy. Again, as a reminder, we already had his crewmate, documentary filmmaker Brandon Hall, on the podcast, and that episode was released in December. Check it out too, it's worth it.
My name is Raphael, and I'm an investor and advisor to space companies. Just as a reminder, this podcast is for informational purposes only, and nothing should be taken as investment advice. This podcast is sponsored by Nano Avionics, a satellite manufacturer and mission integrator. Their technologies enable many space companies worldwide to offer services that improve life right here on Earth, such as providing global connectivity, conducting Earth observation, or contributing to scientific discoveries. Check them out, and also check out my episode with their CEO and co-founder. Sadly, I am not a rocket scientist, but I'm an alumnus of the International Space University. ISU offers a number of educational programs about space worldwide. Check them out at isunet.edu.
And just some final things before we start the episode about ourselves. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platforms such as Apple or Spotify. If you want us help expand our work, you can do so and support us at www.patreon.com/Space Business Podcast, and we'll also put that link in the episode notes. And lastly, you can follow us on Twitter at podcast_space. Hey, space enthusiasts. It's time for another episode of the Space Business Podcast. And I'm really excited today. It's our second episode with a crew member of the dearMoon project. And just in case you're actually living under some sort of space rock and haven't heard of dearMoon, or you have not yet listened to our first dearMoon episode, dearMoon is a project financed by a Japanese entrepreneur, Yusaku Maezawa. He's an internet entrepreneur. And he's basically taking 8 artists on a circumlunar mission on Starship sometime in the next few years. And the crew was just recently announced the beginning of December. We had our episode with Brandon Hall, which I'll also encourage you to look up. And today it's our honor to have the second dearMoon crew member, Karim Iliya. Welcome, Karim.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. And Karim, before we kind of delve into dearMoon questions, I was quickly glancing over your bio again, and your bio says you are based in Hawaii and Iceland. So sounds to me like maybe you like volcanoes.
Yes, I do. I love volcanoes. Actually, I came out to Iceland and ended up extending my stay until I lived here for the volcano. I came out here last year when Fagradalsfjall started erupting. I basically booked a flight and got here as quick as I could to photograph it. And my family is in Hawaii, and so I'm split between the two countries. And while they are very different, they're also very similar. But I would say maybe obsessed with volcanoes.
And I guess both Hawaii and Iceland, they are very special places in many ways, nature-wise, geology-wise, on Earth. Is that then kind of segueing to the moon? Is that something that got you fascinated about the moon as a location as well?
Yeah, I've always been interested in space and particularly the moon. And I think about how for millions of years, every person from before we were even humans has looked up at the moon and probably wondered about it. It's been our companion since the beginning. And so I've often looked up at it and thought, it's so close to us. When will we go back? And to think that now that I'll have the opportunity to go and fly around the moon and see the perspective of our planet from the moon it's such a crazy thought that I haven't even been able to process yet. And I hope that I can photograph that well and share that with everybody back here on Earth.
What do you think you may find most fascinating about the moon? Is it sort of the moon itself and maybe some of the geological features? Is it that aspect that you mentioned of, seeing the Earth rise like the Apollo astronauts did? Is it maybe even before you go to the moon on Earth that you may go back and study some of the, like you mentioned, the many cultural references that exist of the moon?
There's so many aspects about it. As a photographer, I'm very interested in the visual perspective of seeing our whole planet all together. I've spent much of my life trying to document the different pieces of our planet: underwater, volcanoes, different cultures, people, ecosystems. And so the ultimate dream is to be able to get out of the planet and see the whole thing and get a perspective of the whole place. And of course, the moon is such an integral part of our planet. It has such an effect on all life on Earth, from people to animals to the tides. So much of nature is governed by the moon. And so it really, while it is almost a foreign object because it is so far away, it really is a part of this planet. It is our moon. And so I've been very interested in this whole planet as well as the moon, and to be able to see the two together is an unbelievable dream.
You mentioned you've always been interested in space. How did that come about, and what were some of the aspects of space that you found fascinating?
There was a slow progression from childhood with some moments that got me really interested in space. And one pivotal moment, I took a university course with a professor, Aparna Venkatesan, in San Francisco. And there was two courses I took with her, general astronomy and then planetary astronomy. And so learning about the different planets and moons in our solar system, you start to hear about these places like Io, the first moon of Jupiter, which is the most volcanically active place. So I then start dreaming about what it would be like to stand next to a volcano on the moon of Jupiter and look up at Jupiter in the night sky. I think about what it would be like to go around Saturn's rings. What would it be like if our moon had turned into rings instead of a moon? I often then started thinking about our place in our galaxy, our view in the galaxy, because we are in the disk of the Milky Way. So I think of it like a plate, and we are inside the plate. And then I start to wonder, what would that view look like if we were somewhere on the edge of the Milky Way, or above or below the Milky Way? Like, how would our view change? And what do different parts of space look like? And it's a place that your imagination can run forever and ever. And this is, just getting off planet, seeing the moon up close, seeing the planet seems like the first step for humans to move towards exploring more of our universe. And hopefully that also gives us a better appreciation of what we have back here on Earth, because there are a lot of hostile places in space and a lot of planets and moons that are not very nice places to live, let alone visit with our fragile bodies. And so if that can help us also gain a better appreciation of what we have here on Earth, I think that would be very important for our species and us as people.
Agreed. I forget now who said it, but somebody, maybe have been one of the astronauts, once said, yeah, space is basically trying to kill you in every imaginable way possible. So yeah, it does make you appreciate that this is a very special place where we currently live. But it sounds almost like, if all goes well with humanity's quest for space, like dearMoon, it may only be a first step for you. And maybe, if you have the chance to go to fascinating places like, Io has a lot of radiation, but, Europa, which is the Jupiter moon with the giant under ice ocean, or Enceladus with the ice volcanoes, you'd probably happily go from the sense of it.
I would love to. And I think about if there were different time periods that I would like to be born in. And definitely where we are right now in life is an incredible time period. But if I had to pick another one, I would love to go far in the future if this is something that happens, where you can casually go and visit other planets, other moons, in the same way that now people can casually go to Europe or go to North America on holiday. To be able to explore these places would be so interesting. And, I hope that we can do that while also preserving and protecting our planet. I don't think that going to space means that we're giving up on our planet, I think that it can help us appreciate it more and see what is out there. In the same way that when you travel to other places, you come back and you appreciate home more.
Yeah, no, understood. But that's actually it's usually a question I would have asked a little bit further on, but let's go there. So, but if you think about the moon and the future that humanity might build on the moon, and hopefully a mission like yours is, part of the steps we're currently taking, and other steps, of course, the NASA Artemis missions, that we will establish a more permanent presence on the moon, right? It can take many forms. And then there's obviously, lots of science fiction works we can also consult that had various visions of what settlement on the moon may look like, recent movies or the Expanse TV series or the like. So, but if I take, one of the places where you live, Hawaii, as an example, would you prefer the moon to be the future moon to be rather a sort of, big island, the national park there, or Honolulu, or both?
Oh, what a great question. I think definitely the route of a national park, nature preservation, where people can go and experience being out in nature, which is a crazy thought to think about going hiking on the moon, but it would be incredible. Of course, you would need to have some kind of hub, and it is a big place. And, I haven't thought deeply about how you would build and expand and all of the potential issues that might arise from that in terms of preservation, in terms of, culture, light pollution, there's so many things to think about. That's a great topic to explore. And yeah, I hope that I will be able to one day stand on the moon. And I hope that more people in the future will be able to do that as well. It would be really incredible to see. I think the more that people see of our world and I guess space, the more we can understand each other, be better connected. I think travel is good for people. Of course, there are the environmental implications of space travel and movement, but hopefully that's something we can also solve through technology and through being a bit more conscious about our place in this whole planet and world.
So it sounds from everything we've talked about so far that when the initial call came along for dearMoon and you saw it, of course you applied, right? It seems like something that you would naturally do.
Yeah, I actually had long ago, I told a good friend of mine, I said that one day I would take a photo of our Earth from the perspective of the moon, because that really is it seems like the ultimate feasible goal that you could hope for in your lifetime as a photographer. Photography, there's incredible places on Earth that I still have yet to go to. And I will never be able to see all of these places and photograph all of them. But the ultimate goal of what is potentially possible is to photograph the Earth from the moon. And I didn't really think that I would be able to do it. And so when 10 years later or so, she sent me a link and she said, here's your opportunity. And so I applied to it. And of course I thought, well, yeah, me and everyone else, there's so many talented people here. And somehow I made it through each of the steps and was selected, and that was an incredible feeling.
For the initial step, which I believe was a short video, did you immediately know what you would talk about in your introductory video?
Yeah, so there was also some writing that we did before that got us to the video step. And for the video, I mean, I thought, I'm a filmmaker, so I should make a film. I should do it in the style that I would make a film, with sound design and use good quality footage. But I also wanted to make something that didn't feel disconnected, that was a little bit personal. So it was a very short period of time, and I thought about the idea I would introduce myself, with a selfie, with a GoPro as a selfie, and then dive into the ocean. And then I transitioned that into a shot of a diver going into the ocean and then different scenery, and that moved me into the video to get a little bit of that, kind of personal, intimate. I'm a real person, and not just to produce video, but then to show and record me discussing my thoughts and what I do and who I am and how I feel in a very short span of time, which was 1 minute. Put it into a video, and yeah, I guess they liked the video because I then made it to the next step.
And so you mentioned diving into the water. You are doing a lot of underwater photography and filmography as well, right? And so of course you're so already familiar with doing your photos and movies, not only on Earth, but also in the water, so in different environments. But now you're going to be yet in another environment, which is going to be the microgravity environment. Have you thought about how that may, make you adjust the way you're going about it?
Yeah, I'm very interested in the microgravity and floating around in space. It's something that I've thought a lot about, and I do a lot of free diving and scuba diving. And so while I don't want to be overly confident and say, that I should be fine floating around, I do feel in some sense quite comfortable being in a three-dimensional space where I can go in any direction. And when I'm free diving, if I need to, I can let go of my camera and it will just hover there in front of me, and I can do something, adjust something, and then dive down further, go to the side. So that feeling of weightlessness, at least the closest thing we can experience reasonably on Earth, I'm quite comfortable in that environment. So I'm very excited to see how that translates to being up in space and photographing and maneuvering. Of course, I think about there isn't the viscosity to be able to push myself through the water.
Yeah.
When you're in the water, you can move your arms, you can move your legs, and you'll go in a direction. But in microgravity, I think that will be very interesting to have to basically push yourself off of surfaces to get to the next surface.
Yeah, you're right. I haven't thought about it, but there's actually a lot of similarities, aren't there? Also, like, I'm a scuba diver as well, right? And so one of the things they hammer into you, as you know, very early is sort of like, stop flailing with your arms. They're useless. Just use your fins, right? And then in space, I guess it's the inverse. You're going to use your arms to kind of get around. And for most people, the legs are useless. And I guess it's even, famous last words, maybe it's even a little bit easier than the diving part because you don't have any like nasty currents which suddenly come up and like sweep you away.
Yeah, and if you're inside the rocket ship, you don't have to worry about breathing. You don't have to worry about your equipment. You don't have to, you don't have all of the bulkiness. I think it will be quite interesting. I do intend to get myself stuck for a moment, without just floating in one spot, and then see how much effort does it take with just air resistance to get myself back over to a wall. And I think that'll be exciting and interesting to see. Can I just, blow air, wave my arms around? Like, how do you get yourself back to a wall?
Yeah. I'm sure you guys are going to get ample training. You guys are certainly going to do the 0G flights on Earth and all of that, and going to be amply trained in that. In terms of equipment, are you envisioning sort of using the same equipment you're using right now? I guess the Apollo guys famously used, was it Hasselblads?
Yeah, they did. I hope that I can bring a variety of equipment up there. I do both photo and video. I would love to shoot film and bring some Hasselblad cameras up there as well as just my regular digital setup or whatever is the current newest model that will do the best at the time. And I think it's important to continue to photograph in the way that I'm most dialed in, comfortable, and able to work in changing scenarios, different light. But I would like to bring a variety of equipment up there so that I can shoot some telephoto shots and get some close-ups from space, as well as some wide angle to get the whole scenario. Part of what's exciting about this is also it's documenting out the window, but also documenting from inside
the spacecraft.
Getting an inside look at this whole process, the training, the other crew members, and trying to capture that emotion as well, so that people can connect to those images and this trip and these moments. I want to be able to try and have people feel in a way that they are up there as well. And that is a very difficult thing to achieve, but I will try my best.
And we haven't really spoken much about your sort of current terrestrial work and your history there. Can you just give us sort of, summary of, what most of your work, what the philosophy behind it is, what you're focusing on, sort of if there is sort of a connecting thread, what that thread would be, and then how you would envision extending that, if that is what you're envisioning, to space?
Yeah, I photograph a huge variety of things. And when I was a kid and I first started taking pictures, I remember many people would tell me that I had to pick one thing and focus on one thing, specialize in one thing. And I wasn't very interested in that, because there's so many beautiful things on this planet. There are whales that swim and interact and fight and give birth and socialize with their calves. There's volcanoes, there's Northern northern lights. There's people in different cultures that are doing interesting things. I also like to document the daily life around me of people, and to show that, the daily life of somebody who works in an office in Japan is very different than the daily life of a fisherman or person who lives on a small island in the South Pacific. And these things are very interesting for other cultures, for people to look at what is happening on the other side of the world. There's so many incredible men and women and animals and plants. And so much of my work has been to basically try and document this moment in time on our planet and all of the nature around it, so that I can try and show a picture of how it all fits together, how the ecosystems and the people and the culture and society all work together. And so going up into space, if I can expand on that and use that as an opportunity to tell the full picture and connect the dots, that's the goal, is to capture a snapshot of life on Earth in all forms, and to inspire people and show people the beauty of this planet. I spend a lot of my effort and time trying to do conservation through photography, and there's many different ways to do that. For me, I try and show the beauty of animals, to show that they're multidimensional, that they have personalities and lives, and that a small bug that lives somewhere is just as important as a giant blue whale or as a person. Like, we are all in this together, and we all deserve to be here. And if I can show people that these landscapes and these places are worth protecting, then hopefully we can put a little bit more pressure on our politicians, our corporations, the people who are making the decisions about this world, in order to try and help preserve this place and make it a little bit better than when we got here, so that future generations can enjoy that. And that, of course, gets into a deep topic about what we're doing here. But that is the goal of my work, is to document our planet in the hopes that we can protect it, preserve it, and make it better than when I got here.
And I mean, to some extent, if all goes well, you're entering a really sort of a tradition of photographs here that have really changed humanity's, I think, perception in that sort of more preservationist direction, right? So the Earthrise picture, the blue marble picture, the pale blue dot picture, right? Is that sort of the tradition you're looking to continue, ideally?
Absolutely. These images, I've heard that the Earthrise photo, amongst those other images as well, basically helped kickstart the environmental movement. And so while it seems counterintuitive to go up in a rocket ship to space to take a picture of the planet, in order to get us to care about this place, the reality is it does change people's perspective and perception. And if I can contribute to that, and I can capture even one image that can help change people's perspective for the better about this place, then my goal in life will be complete.
So currently, before you're going, you are looking the other way, or the only thing you can do is look the other way. You can look up at the night sky. Is that something you also do? And you look at the night sky, the moon, and what's going through your head? Like, how do you look at it? Are you looking, for example, and thinking, is there life out there? Are you thinking like, oh, it's infinite vastness? Are you thinking like, oh, it's all dead, there's nothing there, and I'm happy I'm here? Or what is going through your mind?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time looking up at the night sky. Here in Iceland, we have the northern lights. And so that really can get your mind going and your imagination moving. And the wonderful thing about the northern lights is, whether you know what causes them or not, it is equally interesting. The science of it is just as amazing as if you were using your imagination. And so I spend a lot of time, sometimes I'm looking at the moon and thinking about that place. Sometimes I'm thinking about other planets that are within our solar system. Other times I go on a larger scale and I start to think about our universe. And then, well, if we're in a universe, is there a multiverse? How does that fit in? How abundant is life in other places? Is it Is it quite common? Is it something that is very, very rare? My own personal perspective is there has to be more life out in the universe. It would be totally insane with how many stars there are and how many planets there are that there's no other life. But of course, then I wonder about, if there was intelligent life that came to Earth, but they did that 100 million years ago, we were not around. And if they come 100 million years from now, we will not be around either. Maybe we will. But so it's one of these things where the vastness of space and the vastness of time is so big that I do hope we encounter other life within our lifetime, at least, microbial life or wildlife, let's say alien wildlife. That would be incredible. So I just don't know. Every day I look up and I wonder, my brain goes to a different thought and think about different things, different dimensions.
What you just mentioned there, it sort of it brought up a fascinating potential question in my mind, which is like, there could be theoretically alien alien photographers out there, right? And by the way, they may already be taking pictures and we just don't know, right? Either because we don't have technology to detect it, or, I had a guest previously on this podcast, Dr. Pete Worden, a former NASA administrator and not one of these centers, and he's currently planning a mission to send very small cameras effectively to Alpha Centauri and the planets there to take pictures on a very rapid flyby. And then I asked him, like, Pete, if aliens did the same thing with Earth, would we even detect? And he was like, probably not. So anyway, that's like a long-winded way of saying, like, maybe that's already happening. But my question was going to be, I know this is hard to sort of put yourself in those shoes, alien shoes, literally. But if you were an alien photographer and you came to Earth, like, what do you think is worth taking pictures of? I mean, you're taking them from orbit, right? So you can't go into like great detail, but it could be some, I don't know, like natural feature, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess it would just depend on what is different from where you come from.
The home world.
If you come, yeah, exactly. If your home world has, volcanoes and oceans, then maybe that's not that exciting. Maybe the architectural features are interesting. I think we do this anyway when we travel. We photograph the things that are different from our own society and where we're from. I guess I often think about what kind of things do we have on our planet that other planets don't have? And then what kind of things might other planets have that we don't have? We could easily not have northern lights, and we never would have even have thought of that or imagined it. Or things like lightning or volcanoes. There's so many incredible natural phenomena. Even I think about snow versus rain, and how, or waves, and how you can get on a surfboard and ride a wave. I would imagine that on other planets there are so many things that are so strange and foreign to us. I would love to photograph on another planet and just see what natural phenomena. Of course, the wildlife would be incredible to photograph. But then again, we have such strange wildlife on this planet that almost alien-like when you think about octopus or squid or bugs. When you really stop and, we're so big, and so we encounter bugs in our life and we look at them and we're like, oh, there's a bug. But if you really get up close and look at an insect, how strange it is. There's a reason why we sometimes in science fiction and in stories, we basically make the bugs bigger and then call them aliens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that is, I've been looking at many of your photographs, and of course, many of your photographs do feature, basically majestic wildlife, which is obviously, that is sort of the obvious thing for all we know that's missing in space. Is that something that bothers you? It doesn't matter, or how do you think about the absence of life in the void of space? It
makes sense in the places that we've looked that there's not going to be much life. Mars, for example, without basically no atmosphere, no water. I mean, we say, okay, there's water on Mars, but it's not like running rivers and lakes and things like that. And so, it's almost as if we are looking at some of the most hostile, dry places on Earth and wondering why there isn't an abundance of wildlife there. I mean, if we found the equivalent of, an ocean or a jungle or a rainforest, then maybe it would be abundant. But when we look at, we haven't been able to access those kinds of places yet. So of course, it's going to be hard to find life and complex life if there is on places like Mars or Europa. But I hope that we, as technology progresses and we can can look outward a little more. I was just watching the movie Avatar last night, which really expands the imagination of what a fertile world might look like on another planet. And of course, that's all, it's science fiction and fantasy. But I think there's got to be other life out there and other complex life out there. And what does that look like? The variation, there can be so much variation because there's so much variation just on our planet.
Yeah. And there's actually a whole other episode, this podcast with Dr. Graham Lau, an astrobiologist. But, one of the things that he very clearly says, and I would agree with him, is that we may also be too limited because we only know one type of life and we're so used to it. There might be totally different types of lives. And some of the science fiction has explored that, right? But let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the mission. So, after you found out that you were selected, what were your thoughts? For example, the excitement. Actually, let's take a step back. The moment you found out you were selected, what was that like? And I think it was in your short video on the side. There was sort of a funny story of you jumping in fields in Argentina or something like that.
Yeah, I was on a film shoot where, funny enough, actually, the film shoot, it was a nature documentary that it will be coming out in a few years. And so our schedule was very much based entirely on the tides, which, from the moon. So when we were sleeping, when we were eating, and when we were filming was based on the tides, which meant that every day our schedule, our meals, and our sleep was shifting. So I'd never done this before, truly living by the tides. So it seems like a very fitting place then to find out that I had been selected for this trip. So I actually came back early from the shoot because I had one more, what I thought was a one final, interview or call. And so I was very prepared for, okay, this is maybe, I'm getting closer. This is the last one. And so there was nobody on this farm except for the old Argentinian lady who cooked and cleaned. And when I found out, I was just in this vast, quiet, empty space with nothing around, and I just went running through the fields and jumping around. It's such a hard thing to process, these emotions, because you can't get your hopes up too high, or else you're going to get crushed, because there was approximately 1 million applicants, and
wow.
Going each step of the way, you think everybody who has made it this far is so talented and incredibly qualified that I could easily be cut out now and still be very, very satisfied and happy with how far I've got. So I didn't build my hopes up too high because I didn't want to have that letdown. So then to actually hear that, the release of energy and feeling is just, it was such a crazy experience. And of course, then I had to keep it a secret.
Yes, I wasn't aware of that, but Brandon, at the last episode, you guys kept it a secret for like a year or so.
Yes, of
course. Must have been tough to some extent, right? Were you allowed to tell your closest family members? Or?
Yes, we were allowed to tell very, very close family and friends, people that we could know and trust. But it's one of those things where, there's many secrets you can share with people, and they're not going to go and tell the world. And if they do, nobody cares. Whereas this one, there were friends who good friends, I really wanted to tell them, but they worked in the space industry, either with satellites or as astronomers, astrophysicists that are quite respected in their community. And so these are people who I was most excited to tell, but unable to tell, because I thought, if I told them and they told their friends, then it is out in the world. So.
And when MZ was in that final call and he told you that he was offering you to come along, were you prepared to say yes immediately? Like you had kind of thought about it, everything, sort of the responsibilities, the potential risks. You were ready.
Yeah, I was. I wasn't prepared for that being the moment that I found out. So I was completely caught off guard, but I also have thought deeply about the risks of space travel to the limit that I understand how rockets work and how space travel works. But, there's many things in life that I do, and I think about the risks and the dangers. And that might even be, getting in a car and driving on the freeway in Los Angeles is insane. And every time I'm doing that, I think about how I could just crash and explode into, fiery death. And so that stresses me out. But then other times I find myself in the water in the middle of whales that are smashing into each other. These are bus-sized animals, and I'm in the middle of it, and they're flying past me, and I'm thinking, okay, I hope they see me, and I have to, try and dodge some fins, or going and photographing active volcanoes and you have lava spurting out. And so it's about assessing risk to reward. And sometimes I do things that are quite risky, but the reward is high. And other times I opt out of things that are not that risky, but the reward is so low that it's just not worth it. And so for me, space travel, it's one of those things where the safety and the technology is becoming incredible and getting better and better. But of course, it is still strapping yourself into a rocket and flying outside of the planet, massively dangerous on the scale of, space travel is not the world's safest thing, but the reward is so incredible, at least for me, and the opportunity, both from a personal, emotional perspective, as well as what I can do to document that and share that in my life and career, is just the reward is beyond anything that I can comprehend. And so when it comes time to actually, buckle up and get in, I'm sure that I will be nervous, but at the same time, it'll be worth it, and I'm very excited to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And actually, the second after I asked you this question about the risk, actually, now you said it yourself, but it went through my head, was like, why am I asking this question? This is a guy who hangs around volcanoes. But there you go. Since you found out, or since you had the certainty, basically, of being a crew member, anything specific you have done? I don't know, types of research or something like that to prepare yourself?
Good question. Since I found out, I actually haven't delved too deep yet into all of the things that are there to learn about space travel. Maybe part of that is I'm very excited to learn from one of our crew members is Tim Dodd, who runs the YouTube channel Everyday Astronaut, and he is just such a wealth of knowledge that I'm so excited to hang out with him and learn directly from him.
Oh yeah, you don't have to learn anything. I think, for example, about Starship. I think he's probably like the world's best walking Starship encyclopedia.
It's truly amazing how much he knows. So yeah, I've done a lot of dreaming and a lot of imagining, and I am, of course, reading up a little bit about the moon and about the Starship. But for the most part, it's almost like I want to learn that directly from Tim as we go through the process of training. That and there's so much to it. There's so much to think about. There's so many facets to explore, that each aspect I learn about is more and more interesting.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's going to be Tim, who's amazing, but probably also a whole bunch of other very qualified people. I'm sure they're going to roll in for the training. So that's like yet another part I'm going to really envy you guys for. It's going to be just the training is going to be probably an amazing experience.
Yeah. Learning from the SpaceX team, meeting astronauts and people who've experienced this, and the whole process is so exciting and incredible. Even aside from going up into space, getting in the rocket and seeing our Earth and our moon, just everything around it is such a unique opportunity as well. I'm very excited about the training.
I mean, were there any? And I understand you guys have already given access even until now to some astronauts and so forth. Is there any sort of key remaining burning questions you have that have not been answered yet?
I have so many questions about so many things, about the rocket and how it will be, about takeoff, and but part of the fun is also experiencing it in real time. When I travel to other countries, I often try and do as little research as possible, and I don't see and figure out where I'm going to go. I just like to get there and then experience it while I'm there. And this might be also what I do in this scenario, while preparing myself as much as possible in terms of being able to photograph and film to understand those things. I do find a certain joy in just having it be a novel experience right in the moment. I never watch movie trailers. I don't want to know if I'm going to watch a movie. I just want to go right into it knowing nothing. And of course, you can't do that with space travel. You have to go through training. There's a lot that you should understand. But in terms of, the actual experiences of what it's like and the emotions, I want to have as raw and unique of an experience as possible while still being prepared for it.
No, that does make sense to me. So kind of summing it all up and a lot of things we talked about, and we touched upon a few of aspects already, but what do you think would be the ideal outcome for you for this mission, other than coming back safe and sound, of course?
The ideal outcome for me in this mission would be to document the whole story through photographs and video to show people, to really capture this trip, and on a bigger level to capture an image that will change people's perspective back here on Earth, so that we might do a better job taking care of this planet, the people, and the nature that we have here. That's the ultimate goal. If I can get an image that will help me in my work to be able to shift our perspective to make this place better and to preserve and protect this planet and to appreciate it, that would be the dream.
Yeah, it's funny actually. You may or may not notice my usual job, other than doing this podcast, I actually have a space venture capital firm. And a long time ago, I came up with the motto, which is basically, it's in Latin, but it's like to space for Earth, because that's where we live at the end of the day. So I very much agree with you there. I think literally it's to the stars for Earth. And I should really remember it, but it's in Latin. I'm not good at Latin, so there you go.
Yeah.
Karim, one fun question which I also asked Brandon, and Brandon, poor guy, he got it without any advance warning, is about items that you may want to take along on this trip. And the specific things I want to ask you about is one book, one item of food, and a song. And if you want to sort of add another type of personal item that you think is important, you're also free to do that.
Even though you gave me advance warning of these questions, it is a very difficult question to answer. I think in terms of a book, the first one that popped to mind, and it might come off as a little bit cliche, but I would want to bring The Alchemist with me, which if you haven't read it, or for those who haven't read it, I'm not going to spoil anything. But it's a beautiful story that can be read for the smallest children who don't even know how to read, or as a very old person, and everywhere in between. And you'll get something different out of that book. And it's a story about a journey and coming back. And I think that's very much what we're doing. And another book, I guess I would want to bring would be The Little Prince, which is also one of those stories that can be read at any age in life, and that you'll learn something about yourself and about the world from it.
Yes, and it features volcanoes.
And it features space. Yeah.
Yes.
In terms of a song, it's so hard to think about what song you would want to listen to. The good thing is that the trip is about a week long, and so I should be able to bring a variety of songs. But I would want to bring music from around the world, different cultures, traditional music, traditional Mongolian music, traditional Irish music, amongst just different cultures, to be able to listen and appreciate the diversity of humans and music that we have back on Earth. And one of the crew members is musician Steve Aoki, and I'm sure he will be making, I imagine he will be making some music in space, which
I hope so. We all hope so.
Really interesting, I don't know how much music has been made in space, but that's exciting. And in terms of food, what food would I bring? I mean, I don't know what we're allowed to bring.
Imagine there's no restrictions.
No
Any
restrictions. I mean, I love burritos. Berries, also fresh food, probably. I don't know how. I guess if it's just a week, there'll be refrigeration, and but again, seeing videos of astronauts and the food that they make, I'm quite interested to actually eat food that people eat while up in space. Seeing an astronaut, I watched a video. She was making a burrito and or tacos, and had to squeeze it out of the bag, and the tortilla could just float around. I'm very interested to see how that whole process process goes about. And I know as a kid, we had, in school, they called it astronaut ice cream, and it's dehydrated ice cream. I don't know whether that's really what astronauts eat up in space, or whether that's just to sell it. But I look forward to all the different aspects of how to do everyday things in space, whether that is eating, exercising, bathing, brushing your teeth. How do you do those things? And I've seen some videos, but it'll be very interesting to experience it, learn how to do it, and gain a greater appreciation for the things that we have back here on Earth.
Yes,
whether that is
the creature comforts on Earth, exactly,
and also the natural elements like wind and rain, and smells, like of the smell of trees, which we won't get up on the Starship rocket, as far as I'm aware. I don't know if there will be trees on board.
Like a canned version.
That's what I would bring a tree with me.
I wouldn't let you do that, but that would be very nice to have sort of some trees there. I mean, Starship is very big, so you never know, there might even be enough space.
Yeah, for a little forest.
Karim, very, very, very interesting answers. I love that you brought up the Alchemist as well, because that is, like you said, again, I'm not gonna give any spoilers, right? But it's about this ancient concept of basically the hero's journey, right? That you go out somewhere because you're on a mission. You are literally on a mission to do something, but then you realize the whole point is actually to come back and to where you were and use it there, which is what you guys are going to be doing. And it's going to be amazing. And I know this is a really busy time for you guys, so thank you so much for taking the time to coming on today. And I hope your training is, as I said, going to be really super exciting, and it's going to be an incredible journey starting today and then probably never ending, right? Because it's such a life-changing event. And then if you ever want to come back and talk about it in the future, you're very welcome. But best of luck for now for that journey.
Thank you so much. It was great to talk to you.
And that's a wrap for another nominal episode of the Space Business Podcast. Once more, if you enjoyed this, please leave us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platforms such as Apple or Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter at podcast_space. You can support us at www.patreon.com/Space Business Podcast. Lastly, if you have any feedback, including ideas for guests, and that may include yourself if you have an interesting space story to tell, or interested in being a sponsor, drop us an email at spacebusinesspodcast@gmail.com. See you for the next episode.